for most occupations, we had a lady before us who wanted to bake a few cakes, and we told her she needed a site plan. I mean, that's our understanding of the law, is that if you have a business, you need a site plan.
That's a home occupation.
Okay, what are you going to do about the 50% rule in the home occupation? In the bed and breakfast, which you want to call it a bed and breakfast. I want to call it a short-term rental. I think they're two different animals.
They are. That's what we're here to discuss. Exactly two. I'm not saying that. I'm saying exactly what you're saying. They're two different animals, 100%. Okay.
But if you call it a bed and breakfast, there are certain requirements, 50% occupancy. What about the house across the street or the house adjacent? How are we going to deal with that?
Well, that's 100% occupancy. We haven't got to writing those laws yet, but that's not going to be a 50% rule because it's not a bed and breakfast. We haven't determined the guidelines for short-term rental yet, except for adjacent, owning the property, and being in town. We haven't discussed anything yet. Fees, occupancy.
Okay, one of the other things, and when the planning board was undergoing its discussions, we were looking at the legislation from the town of Marlborough and the town of Woodstock. And, they have significantly more Airbnbs, short-term rentals. And one of the things I would suggest to you is that it could be the owner, or the owner can designate a host or a designated resident. It has to be somebody that's responsible. It doesn't necessarily have to be the owner. Now,
for what?
Of the property. You only want the owner. The owner has to be on the property to make this happen. We had a case where a young lady came in, her dad owned the property. She couldn't do this because he wasn't going to be there. And, we are moving more and more in the direction of ag tourism. And one of the things, we can't have a lot of tourists in town because we have no place for them to stay. And this is, this should create a lot more bed space for people to come and, be a destination more than just a day trip. And I think economically, that could have some impact on the businesses in the community. So I really am a big fan of this. But, like I said, get back, I think it doesn't necessarily have to be the owner. If the owner designates someone to be his proxy, I think that could be an alternative, and that person would be responsible for what you're talking about.
I won't be on board for that. Just so you know, I won't be on board for that.
I personally,
I won't either.
I'm not going to be agreeable to that. So
I won't be either.
If they don't own the property, then I'm not agreeing to them. Anybody
Can I just,
not own it.
yeah, I just like to pop in here real quick because this is kind of moving a little bit, we're moving in the right direction, but it's moving a little bit fast. And I think there's a lot of definitions that need to be answered. Let's break off the short-term rental and the Airbnb or the B&B. And just going back to agritourism, I celebrate it, but let's not let this ruin it. I think we're at we could be at a crossroad to where if the hotels and motels, or not motels, but hotels can't come in here, and we start getting bought up by robo buying or robo bidding on local residencies that basically, are going to profit off of the agritourism, which won't be us, won't be town folks. We could actually push people out of town. So, there's a lot of definitions that really need to be defined here before we're not start pushing that.
I think in the sort of compromise that we came out of the meeting on the end of September, we didn't certainly, we're going to limit the number of, short-term rentals a person could own, and no LLCs or anything like that. So we're sympathetic to what you're saying there, Alan. Certainly, we don't want that.
I agree.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ed.
I have a question. First of all, the places most of these short-term rentals are going to be nowhere near the farms or anything like that. They're going to be where I live, in the village of Marlborough.
That's not true.
And that's where they're going to be.
That's not true.
What?
That's not.
Where they're going to be?
True.
Where are they going to be outside?
They're going to be in houses outside of out in the ag district. They're going to. They could be anywhere.
They're going to be anywhere, Ed.
Well,
already.
Let's go back.
We established what zoning, what residential ag. We haven't established that yet.
Well, I
Yeah,
wouldn't,
well,
do- I wouldn't be able, I wouldn't be able to vote on anything if we do establish it.
So that's what we're talking through. We're trying to get this thing right. So this way,
Yeah, so,
it's a
so,
good legislation. It's a good piece of legislation where everybody's win-win. So,
Well, I'm against the not being an owner. I'll tell you that right now. And
okay.
that's the well.
well, let me just ask a question to everybody, because I've been reading all the emails and following all the comments. Now we go into short-term rentals. So if we break this apart from being, a B&B and a short-term rental, if we go to a short-term rental for 30 days, what's the sunset on a short-term rental? Is it the 30th day? And then can there be a renewal? If you do that 12 times, that's a year.
I
I mean,
think,
so what are we doing here? I mean, what's the definition of a short-term rental?
I think,
What are the expectations of a short-term rental?
I think in
What's the 29
both the codes of Marlborough and also Woodstock, it's a certain amount of days in the year. I think it's 186 or something days like that.
180 days.
Yeah. So I think basically, I'm not for or against a proxy. I didn't want to make that the main issue. But what I'm understanding and I'm liking is the separation of a bed and breakfast and a short-term rental home occupant. And the thing that I'm really interested in is also if we could design this where people are not overloaded and spend a lot of money. I think those are two things that Tom pointed out, and I'm in favor of that. And to get good legislation on the application of a short-term rental opposed to a bed and breakfast. And also, we don't know, Ed, really, I think it'd be residential, maybe at our Ag 1. I mean, those things we have to discuss, and Alan, you're correct in that whole thing. But basically, I also agree, I'm agreeing with everybody, but I agree with Steve. I mean, it's a good economic base for the town. The thing that, so unclear is like, I'm Alan said, I think I said this before, that, I own a home up here on Reservoir Road. I have a house. My taxes are extreme. I'm trying to make I'm trying to get a little money on the side to pay my taxes, and I have a bedroom. So I go into Tom, I fill out an application. He checks it out. It goes to the planning board. The planning board they have a code that they have to follow, and it says, okay, your criteria of your parking, you have enough space and this and that. Let's go out for a public hearing so this way my neighbors know that I'm doing this. I mean, is that too simplistic?
No,
No,
that's
Al,
it.
I think you're actually doing it that is the simplistic way. What you have to watch out for is when we write legislation, you have to watch out for it being exploitation. Because if you're saying, and now I was brought up in conversation before, somebody designated by the homeowner would have to be there. That makes them nothing more than a manager.
Never
So now
gonna
you have
happen,
a manager
Alan.
in a house.
I think what the planning board is suggesting, because a lot of these people come in front of the planning board, like this one individual came in, I think their parent owns the house. They don't own the house. So I don't know if there's exceptions of it, if they're even in the house or they just do the short-term rentals. They rent the whole house. So those are things that we really have to look at. I mean, this conversation is great, and that's why this is how you formulate good legislation, and it doesn't have to be the same as Woodstock or Marlborough Town. It could be the town of Marlborough. So I think we're on the right track, far from when we started off. So I mean, I'm going to stop talking right there. So if anybody, planning board members, ZBA.
Well, Alan would,
Well, I like what Tom said with the separate application, and that way they have their own fees and things built out the way that the B&B needs to be. Because if it is under the site plan application, everything has to be filled out on that application. The planning board wants it complete. So it is required to have a survey engineer sign off on it.
I just like to say, I agree with a lot of points you made, Tom. I do think we need to simplify the process, and a site plan is a little overkill. So You shouldn't be having to pay thousands of dollars to get an approval for either bed and breakfast or home occupation or anything like that. Alan, would you be okay with someone has a house that they own, but it's not a bed and breakfast, and they would rent it out for 1 to 29 days. They own it and they manage it. They don't live in it. Would you be okay with that? You're saying no.
I think that's a special, I don't know how to handle something like that. I really don't feel
No,
that.
we have that situation in the town right now where people.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to find a way to, maybe there's I don't know.
That was a question to Alan Koenig. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so you're asking me if somebody owns a house in this town
Mhm.
and they own it formally,
Yes.
and they want to rent it out for 30 days?
1 to 20.
That would be-
if somebody comes up here for the weekend to pick apples and drink wine in our wineries, and their family comes up and there are houses in town, which are no one's living in them, but they are renting them out on Airbnb right now. That's a short-term rental to me. We all do it. Are we not going to allow that in the town?
Well, it depends. I mean, now we're stepping into basically a muddy water there. If I own a house in this town and I want to lease it out for a formal lease of what would it be? 12 months, 24 months, 36 months?
No, short-term rental, 1 to 29 days, a weekend, a week. Come up here in the summertime for a week and enjoy the fresh air in the town of Marlborough for a week, which, goes on all the time. And right now, we don't have anything that covers that. Nothing in our code covers that situation, unless it's a bed and breakfast and you live there in the home. But that's not really happening right now in some cases. In other
Well,
words,
at that point,
people are renting out their houses for the weekend on Airbnb, $525 a night. And we don't have anything that really manages that in terms of our code. So are we not going to allow that? Or are we going to put something in that says, recognizes the market forces that are happening right now so that we can control it by limiting the number you can have, making sure the taxes are paid, making sure that we regulate it in terms of abuse. If the police are being called all the time, we're going to shut you down. All that sort of thing. That's what we're trying to get our hands around, I think, here.
Well,
I think when you're trying to get your hand around that, Howard, when you're trying to get your hand around that, can it happen now? Yes. But if we enact legislation that allows it to happen, and that's where the abuse could start.
No,
So
we're trying to get our hands around it and have some control over it. Right now, we don't have any control over it. Really?
Howard.
Yeah.
Howard, let me say something though.
Go ahead.
Let me step in here a minute. What you just explained, Howard, there's nowhere in his first 5 PowerPoints that Chris put out even recognizes what you just asked us about.
That's right.
Yeah,
There's nothing in here. Secondly, let me just say something here. We're talking about taking houses and renting them out short-term, adjacent houses, not living there. I would have to say, on top of everything that we're talking about, if someone's renting their houses out like this, wouldn't that house have to get reassessed for operating a business out of it? Because
yes,
if someone's making money off a rental house, it's just like a business that's selling something out of there. Their taxes go up. Now, if people are just renting their houses out and they're just paying residential taxes, then we have to look into that part of it too. So if you're gonna enact some kind of B&B short-term rental, then we got to get the assessor involved, because everybody that goes in front of the planning board, in my eyes, is going to have to be reassessed for utilizing their house or an adjacent house as a business.
No, and I don't think that it's a home occupation. So I think, I don't see where, there's a lot of home occupation where it's not called a business house, Scott.
yeah, but Al, it's also called
Are they
taxes.
making money? Are they making money?
Tom,
It's called taxes use.
Hey,
Making
Tom,
money, and are they paying taxes on that money?
Tom,
Listen, if we keep it owner occupied, all right, as a home occupation, it's a 1 and 2 family house. There's no need to go into this commercial use. But the idea of me buying a house in Marlborough, and I live in Manhattan, and renting it every weekend to somebody I don't know for profit with no stake in the town is wrong. It disrupts the integrity of the neighborhood, one. Two, it's against zoning. You're doing exactly what Scott just said. You're creating a residential home into a commercial entity that's against zoning altogether that we put together and the master plan. So it's simple. You guys, it's making it very difficult here. It's very simple.
I'm not making it difficult, Tom.
You are making it difficult because
I'm stating what's happening in town right now.
no, you're not, because there's 10 of them right now and we're going after them. But
Okay,
I'm one
so we're gonna shut
doing
them
18
down.
different things, and I just got the letter out to them. Now we're getting responses back from them.
Okay, so we're
If
gonna
we
shut those
police
down.
it correctly, if we police it correctly, and we have a bed and breakfast, which is owner occupied, it's a home occupation. Very simple. The owner's there, they're renting less than 50% of the house, don't need a survey, don't need an engineer's report, owner occupied, it's a home occupation, it's not a commercial use.
Okay,
If we agree to the short-term rental as a definition, as I own the house next door to me, or I own the house next to me, then that owner has stake in the game and it's still a residential house in my eyes. If I buy a house in Marlborough and I don't live in Marlborough, or I live somewhere else in Marlborough, or I live in Manhattan, and I'm renting this house on a weekly basis on a short-term occupancy, then it's a commercial entity, which goes against our zoning code, because you're taking a residential home and turning it into a hotel motel commercial use.
okay.
That's the difference.
Okay.
That's against zoning. That's against our master plan.
Okay.
That's it.
But you
But
will
Tom,
admit.
I'd
that
argue
we
the
do-
same. I argue the same thing. Is the house next door is now become into a commercial entity? It's not owner occupied.
That is the give and take that I've come up with. You don't have to agree with. That was
Yeah,
my.
what I'm saying. I know what you're saying, but it's not a livable address. It's not
flip
not
side
a
of that.
residential home.
The flip side of that, Scott, is there's some economic development involved in this, and we are an agritourism.
I get that, but are
And
we
we
making?
wanna
Are we
open
are
those
we
up
going
for
to make
free.
laws that are going to hinder a hotel from coming into our town?
There's no hotel that's going to come into.
You don't know that. You don't know that. And if you start having bed and breakfasts everywhere, no hotel's ever going to want to invest in our town.
So is that a bad thing? I don't know that that's a bad thing.
I don't know. I don't know.
There is no hotel.
I'd
not
rather have a
there.
hotel, Howard, that
That's a
actually
pipe
pays the
dream.
taxes, that what they're renting, they're actually paying taxes. That's economic development to us. If you have thousands of people coming into our town every week
We do.
and they're ruining our roads, they're running on our roads, they're utilizing our utilities and stuff that we're paying for. What taxes are we as the town getting back from that? Except for the homeowner who doesn't get taxed on that home. I mean, when you have a hotel, you collect taxes from that hotel.
You collect
Right?
taxes from bed and breakfast as well, and short-term rentals. You
Who's
should
policing
be.
that? Who's policing that?
I don't know. That's the
Town
kind
of
of
Mar-
stuff you have to put.
Town of
in.
Marlborough gets very minimal
Exactly.
from, you know
And
that
how
from the
much would they
county.
get from a hotel? Probably the same minimal amount. I mean,
Absolutely not. A
You know,
hotel
when
comes
the
in,
taxes on
a hotel
hotels-
comes into town and it's assessed at $10 million. We're going to get our taxes on top of that hotel.
Well, the whole thing is that
But every-
basically, if we create this code, that we can control the amount of people or the amount of the bed and breakfast and the short-term rentals. I mean,
Just like the toll list.
we
The
have,
toll list.
yes. So we can control that. I would like to say in the future or on the horizon that we are going to start to build a hotel, but I don't see that right now. So I think that we're coming further along. So we have a lot of questions and answers, but we are moving in the right direction, I believe, for everybody. So that's the whole purpose. And
yeah,
we could continue with the conversation or continue it another day, but we might want to sit down and see about creating this fast track, bed and breakfast or home occupation. So this way it
Let me
doesn't
just
force
ask,
somebody wants to do it.
on the 22 letters that we sent out, Tom, these were people that we know have bed and breakfast. And
That's correct.
now, are all of those 22 home occupation owner occupied? We're not sure of that, right?
No, I am sure that two of them are not. And I told them to wait on the short-term rental agreement that we're going into. Two of them have houses on the property that we were talking about. They have a little cottage on the property that they rent out.
Right.
They all came in. They were very apologetic that they didn't take care of business in the town of Marlborough. I told them, don't worry, I didn't need bail money. They were fine. I assured them that they were okay. And they were paying their county taxes. They registered with the county. So I said, you're good with your accountant. I said, we're working on it. So I told them to be patient. Some of them had home occupations, actually bed and breakfast, who have decided they're not going to do it anymore. The COVID has scared them enough that they will not have people back in their home. So they will relinquish, and they have. I've gotten 2 letters from the county stating that they've relinquished their tax numbers up there for the hotel tax, and they're done. And then other people, I think at least 2 or 3 have sat in front of the planning board or gotten applications to get there and just follow through on the actual bed and breakfast home occupation. But with the confusion of us thinking it was site plan application, they were not happy at costing them $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 for surveys and engineers. So
No,
I told them to wait.
I agree.
So we told them we're working on it.
Yeah.
So the two people that are, two
Well, that's what
people
number
that are
4
not
says.
home
Number
occupation.
4 says on this list, site plan. It's requesting a site plan. It says home occupation and requires site plan and special use review of the planning board as an individual basis. So
Well,
you're telling me we're not doing that?
That's why I'm recommending a separate application that's more streamlined for bed and breakfast or any type of home occupation.
I
Because
totally agree
surveys
with
at
that. Totally agree with that because.
right,
it's
surveys at
expensive.
$4,000 are ridiculous to
People don't
show
do it.
2 parking spots.
Right. People
sure-
don't do it. And then
Yeah,
Can
the
I
survey
make a
is,
suggestion? Can I make a suggestion?
yes, of
Al.
course, Manny.
Yeah, yes.
Can we, since there's so many still questions and some homework and investigations to do on this, because I rent a lot. I do a short-term rental. I go every year to North Carolina and I do it over there. And I have to tell you, the way they run it over there, it's a non-owner occupy. And I like to definitely give some of my, what I saw, what Wilmington, North Carolina does. But my suggestion is this, because there's definitely still a lot of unanswered questions. Can we have like a committee? Can you like put together a committee? I'd like to be in that committee, a small group, and find out what other communities are doing. There's a lot of things. Also, there's things like rating. Tom is very concerned. People come in and, they may have disrupted the neighborhood. They took care of that because now everybody gets rated. Once you go and stay a day, a week, 2 weeks, you get rated. You get rated by the rentee, you get rated by the person who's renting it. So everybody gets rated. And you see when you're coming up and you're asking for a booking and you're making a listing, right away, you got a report card how you did in your last rental that you did. So there's a lot of advances that have made in that. But what I'm suggesting is that I have a whole slew of comments to like to interject. But if we could get a committee, a small group, and filtered out all this stuff and come up with a comprehensive suggestion to the board, maybe we could get, there's still a lot of illegality between the commercial property and outside of our code. And there's a lot of things. I'm under the impression that if it's less than 180 days, then it falls to a different category. It's not because it's less than a half a year that you're allowed to rent, then the owner has to occupy it himself for the remainder of the half a year. So what my suggestion is that if we could get a small group and go ahead and get all these answers and come with a comprehensive kind of program here and to present to the board. And this way we could evaluate this and come to because we definitely need an STR in place. So with a small group coming up some kind of recommendation to the board, and that's my recommendation.
Hey, just
Okay,
real quick,
here's the thing. you can't compare us to North Carolina, Florida, Virginia, Tennessee, Woodstock, for God's sakes. Because Manny, I'd like to know where the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 is coming up for the guy you're going to hire to do all that. Because you're not looking at the guy who's going to do it here right now. Because what you're talking about is a
separate question. That's a totally
you're talking about a community, Atlantic City, Virginia, North Carolina, communities that thrive on this and depend on this for their income within those communities. And they have specifically people handling that. We're talking about a dozen places potentially that want to do this. And we need somebody to overdo the ratings and the checkups and the follow-ups and the 3 strikes and you're out. Somebody's got to be hired for that. So if this board is willing to hire somebody for $75,000 with benefits and everything else you need, bless you all. God bless you all.
Let me just bring this up, guys, let me bring this up.
Let me suggest this, that me, Howard, we're liaison for the planning board. The chairman and Tom sit down and come up with something substantial, and then we present it to the board. The planning board can make recommendations, but the town board is the one that follows through and does the legislation. So,
Al,
yes,
finish what you're doing. Finish your statement.
I'm used to getting interrupted.
I thought you guys already did that. That's how you came up with this other list.
No, this is because we came up, now we're discussing about 2 options, right? We're talking about a short-term rental with a different application compared to bed and breakfast, right? So we discussed, the unknowns are, what is, if I own a house, is it two houses down? Will I be able to do it? Is it right next to? So those are little ironing things that we have to come up with. And also the application itself. And I think the good suggestion that is made that there are 2 different things and we can accomplish this.
Al, let me interrupt you real quick.
Sure.
I want to go back to Manny's comment, which was Manny, that was a good comment. And you went down to, where you're down in North Carolina. Some people go to South Carolina. I tend to go to New Jersey. We spend every summer down there, not this one. But when you say, those communities, those aren't communities. To that town, it's industry. So what we have to be very careful here is not to give away our community to industry. Because let me tell you something, down in New Jersey, I'm this guy who likes to go out and meet people and talk to people. And I always try to meet the locals and get the vibe and see the feel. And I'm an outsider because I'm a vacationer. But I've met a lot of friends and I'm down there every year. So I've made friends along the way. They don't appreciate what happened to their town. And we need to find that balance. We need to find that balance where it says we cannot give away our community, because what it comes down to, and I'm telling you now, it happens right now, there is auto bidding on homes in communities that are growing. And for whatever reason that is, when I mean auto bids, it's when they do the electronic bidding on a parcel of property. If this does become so lucrative, you're going to have these corporations. They're probably going to be hotel chains. They may not be, but they're going to be Airbnb chains that are going to come in here and they're going to look at the payback, whether it's a 36-month, a 60-month, or a 72-month payback on this property if it's not owner occupied. And it's going to push the person out who wants to live in this town. He's going to push them right out because you're not going to be able to bid against an auto bidder. And they're going to have that model already figured out. And it's not going to be the person who wants to raise a family in the house. It's going to be the payback ability on that house. So we need to celebrate our agritourism. We need to celebrate our location on the Hudson River, but we also have to keep in our minds the serenity of our town and how nice it is to live here for the private citizen.
I can't
We gotta
agree
balance
more.
that.
I can't agree more with Alan. I back him 100%. And I think you guys should get our input before you sit in this meeting like you did already and give us something that we're not agreeing to.
Well,
No, they agreed to some of that, Scott. We sat down.
I know you agreed to it.
No, me, your brother, and the Howard, and the chairman, they came up with a bunch
I
of.
understand that, Al, but we're having discussion and it seems like me, Ed, and Alan don't agree with a lot of this. So before
we're having the discussion now, Scott.
I know, but so I want to get my point out here is before you go back and have your next meeting, understand this is my point of view, because think about what we're saying, but while you're discussing what you're going to do, because you're going to waste your time, and we're going to have another meeting like this that's just jibber jabber.
Why would I waste my time? I'm not wasting my
What I'm
time.
saying is,
Compromise is always a great thing. You know,
I
you
think
talk it out.
Bed and breakfast is owner occupied, plain and simple. If we're going to go down this road of the next door, we're playing on a slippery slope, because what if the guy buys the next door and then the next door and then the next door?
Well, Scott, I don't think you listened or read what I read initially. We're limiting it. We
I
want
have
to
it right in front of my face, Howard. I don't have to listen to you.
Well,
I
look
read
at the questions that are still there to be addressed. Talks about limiting the number. And we
Yeah,
didn't.
but how do we limit the number?
We put it in the code.
Anywhere.
Put it in the code.
My thing is, look, I would be agreeable possibly to, yes, the owner next door, and he could only have one.
Yeah,
That's it.
there you go.
That's it. But, and my point is though, we're on a slippery slope here, because that house next door is not owner occupied. And to me now, that's a business. It's not a bed and breakfast. It's not even a short-term rental in my eyes. It is a business for pure profit. And to me, it should be taxed as so. It shouldn't be taxed as a residential home. That's my opinion. Secondly, we're on a slippery slope of, we're gonna alienate. And you say it's not gonna ever happen, Howard. You're gonna alienate people that want to come in here, and they see the agritourism in our community and say, look, I might want to build a hotel there, because you know what? I might profit very heavily in the fall season off it, and maybe even through the year with other customers.
That's fine. If they do all their homework and they come up with that idea, that's fine.
Yeah, but if we
I don't have
flood
any
the
problem
market,
with that.
if we
But nobody
flood the
has
market
done that.
with these bed and breakfasts and Airbnbs, they're not going to come invest in our town. And I want to know, I want to ask you, what I'm nothing against the agritourism and the farmers getting these people to come to their places, which is a great thing. What does the other residents of this town and the town taxpayers get by allowing this? That's what I want to know. What do the other taxpayers that don't have Airbnbs, B&Bs, what benefit is it to them? How does it lower their taxes?
It helps economic development in the community, possibly. People stay,
Possibly.
they go to our restaurants, they go to our wineries, they go to their pick your owns, they go to the shops that somebody might develop in Milton or Marlborough. It becomes, right now, they just sort of come, they pick their apples and they go home. Now they would have an opportunity to possibly stay here a little bit longer and take advantage of.
Gives them a little economic base too. If they're renting a room, you know, they could help pay their taxes. You know, a lot of people are stuck paying their taxes.
That also.
So I don't.
How does it benefit the other 80% of people that don't have businesses in town? How does it benefit them?
How does it benefit? Well, you know,
The 80% of the people that don't have businesses.
As we grow the town and the tax base gets bigger, maybe their taxes come down, maybe not. I don't know. That's what.
But we're not taxing
Wishful
that.
thinking
We're
is.
not taxing that house any differently than a residential
Well,
house.
that's something maybe we should look into, Scott. I don't know.
What if somebody buys a house and it has 10 houses on the property? Now you're going to say, okay, I'm going to live in one, and I'm going to make all these Airbnbs. I mean,
That's
So
something. we can limit.
I really can't agree more with Scott in this, because if I were to buy, if I was to buy my neighbor's house, because, you know, they were moving out, and I look at it from a business model, right? So I basically bought that house as a commercial venture. So that house should be treated as a commercial venture, taxed
Well,
as
maybe we
use.
could look into that. You know,
Maybe we should be, maybe,
so that, you know, the code is that we look into that, as that's why the conversation is here. These guys bring up good points, and this way we can look at them.
Look, guys,
And we could, you know,
we're a long ways
Right.
off.
we could definitely come up with something that's going to be agreeable for the whole board. Right?
So,
I
right.
believe that.
I think
Right,
a
so-
good compromise would be a B&B obviously is owner occupied, right? But if you're going to have a next door house that you're going to use as an Airbnb, then that Airbnb has to be taxed at a different rate than a residential house, because you're not living in it.
One, we won't call it a B&B, because a B&B is totally
No, by
defined by
definition, it
New
ain't.
York State law. Right?
We started off separating them, right?
They are, listen, this is, again, here's the pitch again. Bed and breakfast. Let's get off the air. Air means absolutely nothing. Airbnb, I tell people, well, it's an Airbnb. Well, B&B means bed and breakfast. Let's throw that out there. Done. We have a bed and breakfast in the town of Marlborough. And if we create the short-term rental will be agreeable upon whether it's owner next door on the same lot, blah, blah, blah. Good points on the taxation part of it. That should be looked at by the five of you. You should look at the taxation rate of that. Is it done through taxation? Is it done through fees? Other towns have fees for these. Is it every time the house turns around, there's a fee and the town has a little coffer that's put in there? So there, again, we could accumulate money, whether it's through taxes or it's through a fee done through the short-term rental. So let's totally separate the two, bed and breakfast and the other thing. Now, again, I did this in the office and I apologize to the guys that were there, to Al and Howard. I'm going to take my hat off for the town of Marlborough and put my county hat on. We have to be loyal to the hotels and resorts that are in this area, to the Buttermilks, to the Rocking Horses, to the Mohawk Mouse Houses. We did have interest in a hotel in this area, and it was going to come onto the corner next to Young's. I did talk to them. They had interest. We know that because we had a meeting with the planning board to put the additional story on because we had the 35-foot height. We had the conversation in the town board meeting. We had a conversation with the fire company. We had interest in a hotel. A hotel does see interest in this community. The Dunkin' Donuts is now built. The Dollar General is coming in. We have the resorts and the industry here. There's potential for that. Again, we don't want to scare them off. Do we have an obligation to Lloyd or Highland? No, but the Super 8 up there is there. Do we want to put the Super 8 out of business if there's an opportunity?
I think
We have business already.
And there you go, because if this is happening all over in Lloyd and Marlborough and Plattekill and Wallkill.
Or COVID, but I don't know what the situation.
But who knows? This is the point. The point is, if it's monetary, let's work on the monetary end. Commercial taxation, fees, whatever that might be on the monetary end. 2, separate B&B, short-term rental. 3, let's not devastate the industry that's already there, the resort industry, with the ones we have in town, the ones that circle us, and the potential ones that want to come to town. I agree with all those points.
I don't think it has to be all or none type of thing. Maybe we could have both. Who knows? So we can, but one side of the business in favor of another side of the business. Now we're playing favorites. We don't really have, we can't do that. So.
Yeah, but you're playing with residential homes, Howard.
So we control it.
It's different. You're talking about people that live in residential communities, and you're going to now say, okay, I'm going to allow basically a business next to my house. I wouldn't go for that. If someone,
Scott, it's happening now, like Tom says.
Okay, so let's not perpetuate it and make it worse. Okay,
We're not. We want to, as much as I'm against regulation, it helps.
Say, okay, you're doing something illegal. Let's make a law to make it legal now. I mean, what are you trying to say? It's being illegally done, so then go in there and bust them.
No,
that's my opinion.
The point of the matter is to make it more like we started off. I mean, if you don't agree with your brother of what we're trying to do, then you don't agree. That's fine. But
I think you're hurting people that are legitimate business people that are actually investing in our town for a business purpose, and now you're saying, okay, I'm going to just take my house or next door house and start renting it out and not pay any taxes on it when the other person who's doing the right thing is paying the taxes on stuff.
That's not true, Scott.
You're hurting.
Let me just explain. We can look at that. You brought up the scenario, so we can look at that.
Okay.
So your main concern, Scott, is that these short-term rentals become a business and they're not taxed appropriately. And we're kind of the general population is subsidizing these guys because they're not paying their full freight. They're not paying taxes.
Right. Who's managing? Like, again, if you don't tax it through like a fee or an assessment, how do we know how many people they rented it to? Are they paying taxes to the federal government on what they're collecting? Are they paying it to the county? That the county's supposed to be collecting their taxes? How do we know how many people they're renting things to?
These are all good questions, Scott. We don't know.
How do you regulate this? This is the thing, is how do you regulate something like this?
So my response to that is it's happening now illegally, let's say. and trying to get our hands around it.
So
So,
are you, so we know the people that are illegally doing it.
Mhm.
Why are
That's
they
what you're
doing it?
saying. I don't, are we allowing this illegally? Are
I
you
think
saying
Tom is
that?
trying to get his hands around it now, so.
They got
Okay,
their
so-
letters. They got their letters this past month. Those 20 people know what they're doing illegally and are trying to make it right. That's all
So
I
they're
can
trying-
tell you.
So we know who they are, and they're agreeable to make it right. And
Correct.
if we say they got to pay $1,000 a year and a fee, they're going to be agreeable to that.
They either do or they fold. That's again, I'm not the guy. And if it's the five of you, then God bless you. But I'm not the guy in the building department saying who owes what money and how much. I
Yeah.
don't care. It is what it is as far as who gets paid. You guys can decide on that. You get the big bucks, so you guys can decide on that.
listen to this, and we know how it goes once we summons people. Tom, you know as well as I do, we've done this for 10 years now. It goes in front of the judge delays it, we go round and round in circles. So that's why, and then you get accused for spot enforcement, that's not right either. We don't want to go down that road, right? I mean, we don't want to go there because we don't win. We never
Right.
win.
So put the money line in place on your end. And again, this is just me to the five of you. Put the money in place on your end. Fees, taxation, and we have to talk about zoning where they're going. So those are the questions that are in place.
Well, what's
All
your
right, so-
recommendation for where they should go in zoning? I want to get your opinions on
We
it.
don't have one yet. That's something to be, that's more part of the question here on that list.
But I think I brought up.
What is
Well,
your
it's-
opinion,
It
Tom?
is a question. It's
We'll put
definitely,
it, I mean, listen, a bed and breakfast, somebody did our code for the last 20 years and decided that a bed and breakfast as owner occupied are allowed in residential neighborhoods. Again, my 100 objection to any of this, and I'm repeating myself, this becomes repetitive, is I want it to be owner occupied. I don't want people renting houses as commercial entities, as hotels or motels, and have no stake in the game. So when any other agency individual says an agent to represent, or they just have to live in the town and it could be, on the other side of town, I'm not in favor of that. And again, I'm not voting. It's the five of you, but I'm not in favor of that. I gave to a point, and it's just me. I'm going to give to a point. Whereas if you're next door or across the street or somewhere, you're going to police it, because I believe that you will become answerable to your neighbors. If I live here and I have three neighbors that I'm in good standings with, and I create this nasty atmosphere, I don't think code enforcement or the town of Marlborough is going to have to worry so much, because I think those neighbors will harp on that individual themselves. They will walk over it at midnight and say, control what's going on your property. And that itself will help police it, along with our three strikes. But again, the monetary stuff can be discussed. But again, I don't believe we want to set up commercial entities like you're saying in residential neighborhoods. Let's leave that for the resorts and for the people who know how to do it and do it right. We shouldn't be picking their pockets. That's my point. I don't think we could stop bed and breakfast. It's a state regulation. It's in our code book now. It's in other towns. We can't stop bed and breakfast. We can stop the illegality of what people that are doing it. And they're willing. Listen, I've talked to everybody I've talked to has been apologetic. They didn't do this intentionally. They registered with the county. They registered with bed and breakfast, Airbnb, or whoever they're with. There's other 2-3 companies. I don't care. But they were apologetic that they didn't come to the town. And at some point, they're willing to abide by the rules. This is my point with streamlining it through the planning board and not costing them a fortune, because that will chase them away regardless. And if you have a way to make a few extra dollars through the taxes or through a fee, and it's going to help the town, don't chase them away with engineers and surveys and $10,000 process. That's all I'm saying with the planning board. Make it simplistic, because they will comply. So when you say, did those people come to me and say, will I comply? I think they will, as long as the planning board is reasonable and streamlined, and they could get through it without pulling their hair out. They will comply with the rules of the town. And then the fees that you impose, then that's on them, whether they're going to be okay with that. Right now, a bed and breakfast costs them $50 a year in the town of Marlborough. It's one fire inspection fee, and that's all it costs them. It's one $50 fee as far as a fire inspection, mandated by New York State for me to do a fire inspection.
Except, Tom, don't they have to do the whole application process in the beginning? And so there's.
Right, I'm saying the annual fee, the repetitive fee
It's $50.
that we have right now is $50 a year.
But
Now, that's where, again, you guys could come in and say, well, a bed and breakfast is $200 a year.
Right.
As a bed and breakfast, and a short-term rental is $500 a year as your registration fee. That you can create and move to benefit us, and then put that number, 10 B&Bs and 10 short-term rentals. Then you know your number. You know, hate to use the word because it's crazy at the county with this, but a pilot. You know that you've got 10 B&Bs at $200, it's $2,000, and you got 10 at $500 in short-term rentals. That's $5,000. So we know the town's got $7,500 a year in coffers coming in, and is that enough? Maybe it's not. Maybe
Right.
you need to tax it, but that's not me.
But I think the initial application fee is a little.
$1,200,
Yeah, it's a
$600
lot.
for the application, $600 for escrow.
Way too much.
Unacceptable.
Way too much.
Unacceptable, but that's all we have. We're learning from that.
So I
Yeah.
agree,
And that's-
I agree with you on that. The reason we talked about adjacency, Tom, in our meeting was we kind of already have that situation in town in the village of Marlborough. So we that opened the door there. And I think James Garofalo mentioned that as a possibility in the planning board meeting. So that we kind of agree with. And streamlining the site plan process, I am totally in agreement on that. Designated host, I think, is something we might want to look at, but I think you guys don't like that idea. So I don't think we're that far apart. So
Why don't we, Scott, if it's all right with you, Alan and Ed, we'll meet and we'll put those bullets together, and then we could discuss it again at the next meeting or prior to that through emails. Would you be all right with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, all that we
Yeah,
discussed. I think Danielle has a lot to write in her notes, and we could get off that. I will say that, and Tom, you're correct about these people, because prior to that, when I look at their SBLs, about 3 or 4 of them are out of town. One's in Woodstock, one's in Manhattan. But I had the chief look at each one of those, and he did a report. And basically, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, is that there was hardly any real issues with all 19 or 18 of them.
That's correct. No problems.
Okay. And they're in residential and stuff. So I think those are good players to start with. And if some of them backed out because of the COVID, that's fine too. But I think the best thing is, because I think it's a good discussion and we could be here for a while. But I think if Alan, Ed, and Scott, if you could send some bullets and we could talk about it again, Howard, if we could set up a meeting with the chairman and myself and Mr. Corcoran, that would be great.
yep, no problem.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
Good.
All right, so we're gonna move on. Is that all right, gentlemen?
Mhm.
Appreciate it. Good dialogue, as always. Okay, correspondence. So I have a few correspondence and this is where we can lead into, Scott, with your amending the agenda for the candy. Correspondence from Highway Superintendent John Alonji, Supervisor Lanzetta, Town Board. Dear gentlemen, considering that the town is not doing the usual trunk or treat, I thought we may be able to celebrate Halloween by offering a truck or treat event in the town park, but put on by the Town of Marlborough Highway Department. It'd be on Saturday, October the 31st, 2020, between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. My thought is that the trucks would be lined up with treats in each of them, and an employee or a volunteer having a face covering could distribute treats to the cars passing by No one leaving their vehicles. All children under 12 years of age must be in costume, and we will be happy to give them their treats. Please let me know your thoughts on my idea. Sincerely, John Alonji. And I think we all agree that it's a great idea. And Scott proposed, and I certainly second it, that we use some of the funds from the Easter egg hunt that we usually do at the Dome that was canceled because of COVID. And I told that to John, so anything that could help would be fine. So Scott, you want to make a?
I'll make the motion that we utilize the funds from our Easter egg hunt line item in our budget that we did not use this year towards the truck or treat that's coming up this weekend on the 31st. And I'll personally, I'm going to go to Sam's and get the candy. I have the town card to do so, so I'll pick it up tomorrow if the board agrees.
I'll second your motion, Scott.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's
Aye.
good.
Any opposed? None being said, thank you very much. The second one is from the Marlborough Milton Lions Club. The Marlborough Milton Lions Club is endeavoring on a project called Thanksgiving for Seniors. We have a real need in our community of Marlborough to make sure every senior that needs a meal for Thanksgiving is provided with a meal. The Marlborough Milton Lions Club needs our town's financial support to make this a successful project. Our plan is to have 3 established food providers in our community, Frankie's Deli, Kirky's, and Valley Diner, prepare about 210 meals at a cost of $8 per meal. This will include the traditional fare of turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, and a vegetable in a deliverable container that can be microwaved at the senior's place of residence. The Marlborough Milton Lions Club will provide logistics for the delivery method along with additions to the meal of rolls, cranberry sauce, and dessert, as well as financial support. The date of this event is planned for November the 29th. That's a Thursday. The Marlborough Milton Lions Club has contacted 2 local civic organizations, that's Unico and KOFC. I think that's the Knights of Columbus, to assist us financially with Thanksgiving for seniors. We would like to request the use of the balance unused from the summer seniors picnic to assist us with the financial part of financing this project from the town's budget. Thanks again for your support and stay safe. We are all in this together. Please make your check payable to, we know where to make the check to. So I don't know what our balance is, maybe around 800. I'm not sure, Scott, what the balance is, but
It's 800 or 900, somewhere in there right now.
so I need a motion, if everybody's agreeable about the Lions proposal to make
I make the
meals.
motion to utilize the rest of the money for the Thanksgiving dinner for the seniors.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Okay, any public comments?
Public. I have some candy. I could donate some candy from Buttermilk Falls if you need some.
Thank you,
Can you
Robert.
hear me?
Yep,
I hear you.
And if we want to get together on comments in the future about the Airbnb or B&B or whatever, I have some interesting ideas. But
Sounds
we'll get
good,
together
Robert.
then. Okay.
sounds good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your input. I'll get
Okay.
in touch with you, for sure.
Thank you.
Any public comments? I have one public comment. Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Way to go. And my congratulations to the missus.
Thank you. I'll extend it.
And we had the ribbon cutting at the park, and thank you, Jen, for filming that.
Mhm.
And always thank you, Dave Zambito, for all your help in that endeavor. Really appreciate that. And Scott and Chief, thank you for the kind words. That was
Thank you.
said. We said that at the ribbon cutting. It was quite a day yesterday. We had a triple header. We had the ceremony, then we had the 3 birthday parties, and then we had something up at the Evans bridal shower. I could tell you that, because of COVID, people are going out to these outside venues and they're really appreciating it. I think the businesses are appreciating it too. That leads me to that, Chief. You haven't, there's no issue with people, DWI or anything like that.
Well, not specific to people going out to these outside venues. DWIs are up a little bit, but
Are they?
people are home and they got nothing else to do, so they drink. Then they realize they need to go to the store and get something, and they have a problem.
Okay.
But it's COVID driven,
Right.
because they're home, but it's not because they're visiting these outside menus and just cutting loose. It's
Right.
more because they're homebound.
And that issue with the 4-way stop, how's that been? Because of all the cars.
It's been fairly good.
Okay, that's great. I won't take any time. So, that being said, I have some resolutions here, so I'd like to go through them. Resolution 71 is to adopt the final budget. Supervisor Lanzetta proposes the following, whereas the town board of Town of Marlborough duly held a public hearing on the 2021 budget on October the 12th, for budget on for October the 12th, 2021, and whereas said hearing was duly advertised and held at appointed time and place, and all persons interested in the subject therefore were given the opportunity to be heard, and whereas the town board of the Town of Marlborough desires to adopt the 2021 final budget, now therefore be resolved that the 2021 final budget hereby adopt. And before we do that, Danielle, I'd like to thank all that helped with this budget. It was a trying year. Scott and Christina Wilco and our board members that were involved. We actually did it, so our taxes are below the cap. So I think it was a great budget considering the COVID-19, how our revenues were hit. So that being said, Danielle, could you pull the board, please?
Sure. I just wanted to say too, I amended it before I put it on the website. I think you have the one that says the public hearing was on October 12th, 2021.
Yeah,
2020. I
Okay.
changed it already. So
Okay.
Councilman
Thank you.
Corcoran, you're welcome.
Yes.
Councilman Molinelli,
Yes.
Councilman Koenig,
Yes.
Councilman Baker,
Yes.
Supervisor Lanzetta.
Yes, thank you, Danielle. That threw me a little bit.
That'll be on the website tomorrow.
Thank you very much. So resolution 72 is to authorize filing this negative declaration and notice therefore pursuant to the requirements of SECRA and 6 NYCRR, 617-12 on its implementation regulations. And gentlemen, this is the secret for the negative declaration of the floating zone, the BC zone. So everything seems to be in order. The attorneys looked at it. The applicants looked at it. And so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it gives me, with your permission, to sign the SECRA on that BC floating zone for Bayside, and moves for its adoption.
Supervisor Lanzetta,
Yes.
Councilman Molinelli,
Yes.
Councilman Corcoran,
Yes.
Councilman Baker,
Yes.
Councilman Koenig.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. The next one is the adoption of the actual law. As you know, we presented it. We also sent it to the county, planning county. They had no recommendations. They said it was great. So we had a public hearing. We went through that. So now it's time to adopt the law for the floating zone. This would be put into our code. establishing that Bayside, that district right there as a business corridor, as our legislation suggests, and this is what we strive for, especially along the 9-level corridor, to get businesses in there for an economic base. So I'm not going to read the whole acceptance, but basically you have that. It's on the website, and I would ask Danielle to poll the board on that.
Okay, Supervisor Lanzetta offered the following resolution which was seconded by, do that first.
I'll
You
second
need
it.
a second.
I
that-
second.
Scott.
Okay, and Supervisor Lanzetta,
Yes, thank you.
Councilman Molinelli,
Yes.
Councilman Corcoran,
Yes.
Councilman Baker,
Yes.
Councilman Koenig.
Yes.
Okay, last but final, as we discussed at the last meeting, we were talking about the South Pier and how we trimmed it down to
Supervisor,
excuse me?
sorry, there's one more prior to that. There's
Yeah.
resolution number 74.
Okay,
Dispatcher appointment.
let me look at that. Sorry about that. Okay, gotcha. Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome.
Whereas the town of Marlborough Police Department has an open position for a full-time dispatcher, and whereas Robin Martinez has passed the Ulster County Civil Service exam, and whereas it is recommended of the Chief of Police and the Police Committee to appoint Robin Martinez as full-time dispatcher, be it resolved that Robin Martinez be appointed effective immediately, contingent upon a background check. And I got to say that this was a long time coming, Chief. We went through a lot, and basically, we have no control of this, right? I mean, whatever's given by the civil service, we have to follow. But reading her resume, she's very impressive. And I'm sure that the committee looked at that. So that being said, Danielle, could you poll the board, please?
Councilman Corcoran,
Yes.
Councilman Molinelli,
Yes.
Councilman Koenig,
Yes.
Councilman Baker,
Yes, very impressed with her. Very impressed.
Supervisor Lanzetta.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Congratulations.
And
Jared,
Robin,
do
who
you-
listens to
do you
this
have any
meeting,
words,
if
Jared?
anybody has any questions for her?
I don't know if her computer's working. Is it, Robin?
Yes, my computer's working.
Okay.
Hi, Robin, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Looking forward to meeting you.
Looking forward to starting work.
There you go.
You'll have to come in late at night, Al.
It's
I
okay.
know, she's on the A line, right?
Yes.
She will be, yes.
Yeah, eventually.
She'll be training with us in the day shift. Gotta say, this is the first time I see Robin without a mask. So now see her
Like,
whole
who is
thing.
that?
Well, congratulations. Welcome to Marlborough, and welcome to the chief is the best. So I'm sure everything will work out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
20 years on NYPD. Robin?
20 years.
Yeah.
Really?
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck, Robin. It was very nice meeting you.
Thank you. Very nice meeting all of you.
Yep. Good luck.
Thank you, board, for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the approval, board.
Not a problem.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. And now I could go to resolution 75. I'm sorry, Robin, I skipped over that one. Supervisor Lanzetta proposes the following. I was saying that we had this discussion about the South Pier, and we had to do a work change. We eliminated certain things on the pier for the U.S. Columbia. And so we got it down to a $75,000 extra fee. Also $20-some thousand for additional engineering for changing the pilings from wood to steel. I'm well on my way of taking care of that price tag. So the next resolution has to deal about the $75,000, and Supervisor Lanzetta proposes the following. Whereas the town board needs to approve the transfer of funds we resolved that the following be transferred. Transfer 75,000 from general A fund balance account A.0917.000 to the South Pier project account H22.0917.000 to cover the additional expenses to the South Pier, and that was a transfer of 75,000 and moves for its adoption.
Councilman Corcoran,
Yes.
Councilman Molinelli,
Yes.
Councilman Koenig,
Yes.
Councilman Baker,
Yes, thank you.
Supervisor Lanzetta.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. Any further discussion on anything, gentlemen? I think we're getting along with the short-term rentals. So thank you, Tom, for your input. Appreciate it. And board members also.
Yeah,
So-
One thing, Al, one thing. Remember, everybody go vote.
True.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
voted today in Highland, it wasn't too bad.
yeah. I think it was like a 45-minute wait, Howard.
Yeah,
Was it 45 minutes?
yeah, in the rain, most of it, but it wasn't too bad.
Oh,
Yeah, I
man.
think it was,
Got in,
it was
very
like,
smooth.
yeah, over the weekend, I heard it was about 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
My son attempted to go in Brooklyn and it didn't work out.
Oh,
The lines were like 5-6 hours. So anyhow,
Wow.
and we did the absentee ballot. So
Yeah, that's good.
that works too. So all those things are good. Thank you, Scott, for reminding us.
Yeah.
I
I
did
don't,
want
if
to
you're,
say,
you must be living under a rock if you don't know by now.
That's right.
I did
So
want to say,
I think, as always, one of our distinguished members on our committee would like to say something at this time.
Would that be me, Al?
It would be.
Okay. There's 3 things I love on Mondays. Well, every other Monday. Well, Mondays anyway, but first of all, our meetings, love them. Second of all, Monday Night Football. Third of all, my favorite verb ever, adjourn. And I'm going to ask that we add a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Good?
Oh,
Thank you, Alan.
thank you, Alan. Did you stay up all night thinking about that?
I just thought about it.
Right.
Really creative. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. A good meeting.
All right. Good night, all.
Have a great
Good
day.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Right.
night, guys.
I think it's this.